What is going on, Dodger fans? Thank you for listening to another episode of the Incline Dodgers podcast. We're recording here on a Friday, October 22nd. The National League Championship Series is still underway, and your Los Angeles Dodgers trail the Atlanta Braves 3-2 in the series. They are flying back to Atlanta in what is now a do or die situation for the Dodgers. Again.
Yeah, we almost lost Kevin.
You're doing great. Keep it going.
A do or die situation for the Dodgers. Just like the National League Division Series, the Dodgers have to win 2 consecutive games to keep their season alive and go to the World Series. David Rosenthal, what do the Dodgers have to do to take these next must-win games?
They got to hit, Kevin. That's about what it comes down to. Runners in scoring position, hitting. We saw that's what it came down to in games 1 and 2, and that's exactly why they lost. They didn't lose because of the pitching. They didn't lose because Dave Roberts brought in Julio Urias in the 8th inning, although I didn't love that call. They lost because they couldn't hit with runners in scoring position. Now, if you hit 5 home runs and get 10 RBIs from 2 players, I think you're going to have an easier chance of winning as well. But we can split the difference, have a couple hits with runners in scoring position, win game 6, and then all the pressure is on Atlanta for game 7 with Walker Buehler getting the ball.
Hitting with runners in scoring position has definitely killed the Dodgers, especially those first 2 games. Like you just mentioned, they went a total of 2 for 18, which is not going to get the job done, especially when it was only one batter to get those 2 hits with runners in scoring position. We can briefly touch upon some situations where maybe the Dodgers failed to capitalize. But of course, the Dodgers are coming off a beatdown of the Atlanta Braves in game 5. Chris Taylor had himself a night. Jake Reiner, what are your takeaways from what you just saw in last night's action?
It was beautiful. It was honestly beautiful to just absolutely boat race these guys in that game. Was all you really could ask for. And like what David was saying at the top, it is all going to come down to if the offense can save this team. And staring at a 3-1 deficit for the second year in a row, you start to wonder, when will the magic run out? And it just hasn't. This team, and I mean this team because there are a lot of people, a lot of players that were on last year's team that are on this year's team. So they've been in this situation before. But the ability of this franchise to come back when their backs are against the wall is like nothing I've ever seen before. It's like every time you need a win, this team is able to rise to that occasion. And that to me is like an incredible feat and an incredible thing that they can do. On the other hand, it would be nice to not have to be in these situations all the freaking time. And it would have been nice to win one of the first 2 games in Atlanta. But this is where we are now. And now that the Dodgers won game 5 and sent it back to Atlanta, I'm feeling like it could happen. Like it really could. Like there is a very clear pathway forward.
Yep.
And I'll just say this. If the Dodgers win game 6, they're winning game 7. Guaranteed.
I like it.
I'll elaborate more on that later, but that's how I feel. It's obviously about you got to win game 6 no matter what. But if they win game 6, they're winning game 7.
I completely agree. And the path, it kind of feels like a presidential election. It's like the votes are coming in. The path is there, Arizona and Nevada or whatever it is. And then you get to go to the World Series. So look, they had the hardest game, in my opinion, was yesterday. And we saw what happened. So you got to like their matchups. What did Ian Anderson only pitch? 2 or 3 innings last time he started? Yep, then Charlie Morton, we had him on the ropes pretty much, right from the start. And then they just let him hang around, which if they're going to go to the World Series, they simply can't do.
And Seager greeted both of those pitchers with 2-run homers.
Yep.
So hopefully he can ambush them again.
Yeah. Well, so the Grim Reaper was knocking on the door in game 5. The Braves had their ace going in Max Fried, and that did not stop the Dodgers. 11-2 final score. But it wasn't the top of the order that got to Max Fried. It was the bottom of the order. Chris Taylor, AJ Pollock, Albert Pujols all had his number, and Chris Taylor had one hell of a game, 3 home runs, 6 RBIs. AJ Pollock had a 2-home run game himself, and Albert Pujols was able to reach base multiple times. Those were the guys that got to Max Fried. And Trey Turner later on in that game established himself as well too. One of the big bats we were waiting to wake up for the Dodgers. And pitching wise for the Dodgers, this game started out with Joe Kelly, who was only able to go 2/3 of an inning, gave up a 2-run home run to Freddie Freeman to set the tone, had to leave the game with bicep stiffness. And it was announced today that he is done for the rest of the season. We can talk about maybe if David Price will have a role or not. But back to the Dodgers pitching, the bullpen went 8 1/3, allowed no runs, and every single guy who put his foot on that mound did their job, and we should commend them in a second. For me, the one guy that stood out, Brusdar Graterol, kind of was inconsistent throughout the regular season, started to establish himself during the postseason, but he could have gone 3 innings, honestly, in that game because he had like 18 pitches or so over 2 innings, and he had swing and miss stuff, which was the thing we were honestly waiting for from Brusdar.
Yeah, and he had that curveball working too, which was really nasty. That last one to Jock Peterson was just filth. So I just love the fact that there are so many different players on this team that are like have been activated by October. Just like here they come, Cody Bellinger, Chris Taylor, guys that were just in the worst slumps possible. Brusdar Graterol couldn't miss a bat to save his life, and Pollock, who had a pretty, horrendous NLDS and first couple of games of this series, to come alive like that. And don't you think Andrew Friedman was probably smiling somewhere, looking at the fact that Pollock, Taylor, and Pujols, the Dodgers' 3 best right-handed bats against left-handed pitchers? Don't you think he had the biggest smile on his face, thinking like, God, isn't it great when we construct a lineup and it just works?
Yeah, so the 2 things I want to spotlight is what Jake touched upon real quick. AJ Pollock in the NLCS is 6 for 17 with a 353 batting average, 1,100 OPS, 2 home runs. In the postseason, 9 for 31, 290 batting average, 861 OPS, which is higher than Corey Seager, 2 doubles and 2 home runs. So maybe the playoff Pollock narrative is dying, or if not dead entirely. Obviously, the 2 home runs yesterday are gonna help a lot, but he's done his job in the postseason. He has done his job. You can't expect him to carry the entire team. He's done his job. Second thing I want to spotlight is Evan Phillips last night.
Oh yeah.
The entire bullpen, though, like Kevin said, they only allowed 3 hits and no walks once Joe Kelly left the game. That's insane. Over 8 1/3 innings, that's ridiculous. But Evan Phillips, man, this guy is gonna. I think this guy's gonna be a big piece of this Dodgers bullpen, way beyond next year. I think he is the Dylan Floro of the future. That slider is an absolute wipeout pitch to right-handed hitters. I think he's going to be an absolute weapon. I think him and Vesia are going to be, the tandem guys, the lefty guy and the righty guy right there in the middle of the game for the Dodgers. So I'm excited about Phillips, but yeah, like Kevin said, Graterol looked good. Trinan obviously looked good. Knebel struck out the side, and then Kenley Jansen, possibly in his last appearance at Dodger Stadium as a Dodger, looked good as well.
I want to say AJ Pollock redeemed himself, but that game 2 performance was still abysmal.
Oh, it was.
But probably the reason we lost.
The whole picture, the whole body of work looks a lot better than the narratives will tell you.
And I want to say another thing. A lot of people were pissed at Dave Roberts for essentially throwing in the towel for game 4, but the Dodgers were not going to win that game. And there's a reason he saved his big guns and Blake Trinan and Kenley Jansen and all those dudes for this game. And we saw the results why. They needed those arms fresh. We knew there was going to be an entire bullpen game. And now we can talk about how Max Scherzer will take the mound for the Dodgers in Atlanta. Did not really have the best performance in game 2. Went 4 1/3. Did have 7 strikeouts. Only gave up 1 little blunder, and that was to Jock Peterson, a 2-run home run. But obviously the thing that's probably on a lot of fans' mind is that after that game, Max Scherzer said his arm felt dead.
Kevin, I just want to stop real quick. Is that your mic that's making that sound?
Yeah, there's some interference or something.
That might have been. Is it still going?
Yeah.
All right. How about now?
There he
Now
is.
you're good.
Back from the snowstorm.
Yeah.
Weird. I don't know. Was it like that the whole time or just?
No, just
Just,
at the tail end of what you were saying.
Yeah.
All right.
Did you want to reiterate that or?
I already forgot what I was saying.
Scherzer.
Scherzer, dead arm.
Okay. Yeah. So let's see. How do I say this right? I'll make it work. But now the Dodgers have Max Scherzer going back on the mound for the Dodgers, pitching in Game 6 in Atlanta. And the last time out, he faced those Braves teams. That Braves team in Game 2 went 4 1/3 innings, gave up one little blunder. That was a 2-run home run to Jock Peterson. Did have 7 strikeouts, but obviously the one thing that's fresh on most Dodger fans' minds is after the game, he said that his arm felt dead.
Yeah, and I was there in Atlanta. It was literally the first thing he said after the first question of like, you know, how'd it go out there, Max? And he literally was like, I have a dead arm. The good news
encouraging.
Yeah,
Very
right.
encouraging.
Yeah. The good news is that there's no structural damage. He's just that his arm is just tired is what that means. And I like the fact that he's going on 5 days rest. I felt that it was a bit overkill to have him close out Game 5 of the NLDS, just given how short we are on starting pitching. It just seemed a little bit too much. So now that he has like a full rotation's worth of rest, I feel a lot more confident with him going on the mound in Game 6. But I just wish that the Dodgers would have trusted their bullpen a little bit more in this series. It just felt that like, even though I understood the Julio Urias relief appearance, I understood what the reasoning was of him facing lefties and whatnot. And he's come out of the bullpen in the past and all of that. But I think you've learned your lesson at this point, right? You just got to stick with this bullpen. These guys just don't fucking bend. They're equally filthy against righties or lefties. Trinan especially too. I felt that they kind of used him towards the bottom of the order sometimes when it just didn't make sense matchup wise, why they would have him out there that early. So that would be one thing, you know, for Game 6, focus on the offense, make sure Scherzer, you know, has a decent outing, but also just trust the pen.
Yeah, it's funny because it's like you see guys like Justin Bruhl and Evan Phillips come in during these games after Game 2 and before Game 2 and just completely get the job done. Always. You know, Phillips has pitched two games, 3 innings, 1 hit, no runs. Bruhl has been in 3 games, 2 innings, 1 hit, no runs. So it's kind of weird. It's like, you know, during all those 2017 and 2018, you kind of saw Dave Roberts rely on the bullpen and not use his starters when the bullpen was nowhere near as good as it is today.
And completely gassed.
Yeah. And, you know, he's done a good job of it for the most part. I actually like the Scherzer move in San Francisco because it shortened the game. They got to Trinan and Jansen earlier. But the Urias one was puzzling, even though it was his bullpen day, technically. If you're going to have Bruhl on the roster, you got to be able to trust him, or you got to use Bruhl in the situation where he used Vesia and Vesia in the situation where Julio Urias was used. Either way, if you're going to have him on the roster, you got to trust him, period. Hopefully it doesn't come back to bite him. I still don't think that's the reason they lost. If Julio Urias simply executes, we're not even talking about that right now. We're praising Dave Roberts, actually. So they just got to hit, man. That's what it's going to come down to in 2 games. You got to win 1 game, and then you got to win 1 more game, not 2 in a row, 1 at a time.
Poor Julio just looks like he's out of gas.
I'm sure he is.
Really roughed up in game 4.
Mm-hmm.
Gave up 3 home runs, 5 runs altogether. His numbers are really bad in the championship series, ERA over 10, whip over 2. And so I don't think the Dodgers are going to have to lean on him the rest of the series, fortunately. Going back to this Game 6 talk, though, we saw what the Dodgers lineup did in this previous game. I think talking off the air, we all were on the same page. They got to roll out the same lineup with maybe one change, and that's Matt Beatty at first base, at least to start the game against Ian Anderson, and you leave everything else the same. And the reason being, you start Matt Beatty against the off-speed pitch this season, batting .277. And what does Ian Anderson rely on a lot? His off-speed pitch.
Yeah, that changeup.
I completely agree, Kevin. I think the only change you can possibly make to that lineup is flipping Beatty and Pujols. You can also flip Corey Seager and Trey Turner in the lineup if you want as well. They obviously had success going Betts and Seager in those first two games. Obviously, Mookie getting on base and then Seager homering. So I think those are the only two changes. Frankly, I'm okay with starting Pujols even against a righty because that's the type of pitcher that I could see Albert having success against.
And also just I know we talk about it all the time, but like just the experience of being in that situation for Pujols. And I felt that you really felt his like just his smart baseball mind at work last night when he was just able to, keep the line moving, serve a couple balls out there and have really great at bats. He got a walk as well. I agree with David. I think that you could make the case to have Albert Pujols start even against the righty, although I'm good with Beatty to start, and then maybe you bring in Pujols later for a pinch hit spot.
Yep.
Pujols has just been the ultimate team player ever since
Amazing.
he put on a Dodgers uniform. Love what he was saying about Chris Taylor, referred to him as the secret weapon. And I think we've already found who our two NLCS MVPs will be. Right now, if the Dodgers were to come back and win, it's got to be Chris Taylor, hitting .529 in this series with a OPS on base plus slugging of 1,776, 3 home runs, 9 RBIs. And if the Braves are able to hold on and win this series, it's got to be stupid Eddie Rosario, who's just killing this team, hitting .571.
Yeah, can he stop?
2 home
I've
runs,
seen enough, man.
6 RBIs, an OPS of 1,609. I thought it was going to be Austin Riley. We've seen Freddie Freeman do some damage, but my goodness, I did not expect Eddie Rosario to be that guy.
Can we slander the Indians real quick for a second? They gave Eddie Rosario to the Braves with $500,000 for Pablo Sandoval and cut Sandoval before he even put on a uniform. So they essentially just delivered a present to Atlanta. I mean, what kind of franchise does this? Yes, he was injured at the time. Yes, they were trading for an injured player who wasn't going to play right away. But I mean, come on, Indians. What the hell are you doing?
Yeah, just atrocious. A lot of people talk about the Dodgers having a ton of injuries, and we've talked about it a bunch. But I think it's worth just saying how resilient this Braves team has been, considering everything that it's been through. You lost Ronald Acuna Jr. for the season. Then you go out and pick up all these outfielders. Oh, by the way, your leadoff hitter and center fielder, Jorge Soler, is out with COVID. One of your best starting pitchers, Mike Soroka, can't stay healthy. And then your game 3 starter, I think it was game 3, whichever was the bullpen game, maybe game 4.
Four.
Yeah. Inoa goes down with an injury, and you rely on freaking Drew Smiley, who became Sandy Koufax all of a sudden, and the Dodgers couldn't touch him. I mean, this Braves team, although I don't think it matches the Dodgers' overall talent, has had to go through a lot of things that the Dodgers had to go through this year. And they are a very resilient team. And Eddie Rosario is just, I mean, you can't get him out.
Can't get him out. Unless you're Corey Knebel. That was a filthy strikeout looking last night. Love that. But
we have Brewers Corey Knebel. That's what we have. We have Brewers Corey Knebel. He has found his way to the Dodgers, just like trying and rediscovered his insane year he had in Oakland with the Dodgers.
Well, we're gonna need Knebel a lot more with Joe Kelly going out.
Yep. Joe Kelly is out. David Price will take his spot on the roster. My analysis on what Price will do during this championship series is watch from the dugout or the bullpen.
Yep. Him and Tony Gonsolin can be the best cheerleaders of all time, because if they're pitching, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
Period.
Exactly.
But also, like, this is like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, man. Justin Turner on Wednesday, Joe Kelly on Thursday, and now Justin Brule may have to be replaced on today. So we're dropping like flies.
Yeah, this team is exhausted. You can tell too. They're just battered, and even if they're able to kind of drag themselves across the finish line and beat Atlanta, boy, I don't know what the state of this team is going to be like going into the World Series. I mean, we're jumping ahead, but I'm just
Mitch White.
Just picturing it right now.
Mitch White will be our savior. I'm calling my shot.
Okay.
Savior. The only savior right now is the bats because we need to score. Justin Turner, unfortunately, is out for the rest of the season. Even if the Dodgers were to advance, those are just the rules. If Justin Bull is taken off the roster with injury, he'll be out for the season. Andy Burns, did not expect him to be on the championship series team.
Yeah.
That was a shocker. Although them selecting his contract was great news over at my house because it meant Edwin Uceta was designated for assignment. The bust that is Edwin is no longer a thing. Hopefully a team does pick him up. Otherwise, he'll probably come back on a minor league deal. But for now, I'm going to celebrate because that means no more Uceta.
The juxtaposition between the Dodgers starting players versus the bench is just, I mean, it's like our starting lineup is the Dodgers and our bench is the Pittsburgh Pirates. It's like the fact that Steven Souza Jr. is there, Billy McKinney, now Andy Burns. I mean, holy cow. But the thing is that I will say about Justin Turner, and you guys know I'm a big Justin Turner guy. It isn't going to hurt us. I just think he just wasn't swinging the bat that well. I know his postseason lore and maybe he would have refound his swing or whatever, but I just felt like he was hurting us a lot more than he was helping us. And he's still going to be there. He's still going to be in the dugout with the team. So you're not losing the person. I mean, Muncie's still there too. So he can help out from the dugout. But honestly, with the way Chris Taylor's swinging the bat and playing third base, and you're able to put Cody Bellinger back in center, I mean, the Dodgers are basically shifting and saying we're trying to win this with defense.
Yeah, and that's what needs to happen. Gavin Lux has been put in an unfair situation. Someone who's never played outfield before. He's played 10 games career in center field. He was in a tough spot. And I can't really blame him for, any defensive lapses he has in center field. It's not an easy position to play. It's a tough spot, but I think you got to just ride the lineup they did yesterday pretty much the rest of the way. And I think if you are going to play Gavin Lux, I think you got to play him in left field. Yes, I know he said it's easier to read the ball from center, but left field, I think you're going to be avoiding the ball a lot more in left field.
I agree. But I also think that I'm all for keeping Pollock in there, even against the righty. I just want to keep those bats that are hot in there. I don't like it when a bat gets hot and then they take him out of the lineup. Like, I just feel like you just got to ride. I mean, that's what the postseason is. You're riding momentum from game to game. Can you see from game to game, is this player remaining hot? Or should we try and plug someone else in there? So I just feel like with the season on the line, you just got to stick with Pollock.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's answer some fan questions. First one comes from a friend of the show at Chris_Camelo. Babe, Mr. October, Teal Albert, and now CT3. What do they all have in common? I'm going to assume it's 3 home run games in the postseason.
Or home runs in elimination games.
Could be that.
I don't know. But Chris Taylor was in, some rare air last night, hitting 3 postseason home runs off of 3 different pitchers, a la Reggie Jackson in 1977. That's pretty cool. But Chris Taylor is also, I think, the only player to hit 3 home runs in an elimination game. I think I read that. Just ridiculous night for him. And then you also consider the fact that he was the one that put the Dodgers in the NLDS with the walk-off home run against the Cardinals. I mean, what more can you say about Chris Taylor? And he's getting that bag in the offseason. I don't know if the Dodgers are giving it to him, but he's earned it.
Yeah. I think he's made himself a couple extra millions this postseason, no doubt. I still think he's going to get around 4 years, 70 million. And I think it's either going to be from the Dodgers if Corey Seager walks, or from another team if Corey Seager stays.
At Sorry Boy 1 has a question for us. When we go to the World Series, the confidence, what's your take on Muncy coming off the IL?
I still think it's a long shot.
He just took the brace off.
Yeah, he's just taking the brace off now. The World Series would start on Tuesday. I don't think he's swung a bat. However, I think if he's able to swing, you could see him in a pinch hitting role. I think that's about the case. That's about the maximum of what Muncy might be able to do. I still think it's quite a long shot, but so was Kirk Gibson.
Right. I think I would hate to risk further damage to Muncy than is needed. Obviously, if you are desperate, and the Dodgers were desperate in 1988 in Game 1, but I think the Dodgers have enough to win without him. I mean, yes, it has affected this team, him not being in the lineup, him not grinding out those at bats that we know he can do, and his ability to not only kill the Giants, but also just a great postseason hero for the Dodgers. To not have that is rough, but at the same time, this team can still win without him. And I just honestly would hate to risk him hurting himself even more.
I don't know the exact status of Muncy and his timetable, but he can't be that much worse of an option, even with one arm, as compared to Steven Souza Jr. or Andy Burns.
Well, if Muncy played for the Padres, he'd be in there already.
Oh, yeah, he would have never missed any time.
That is true. Final question that I have over here is at Zimzy. Question is, have the Dodgers battled enough in the NLCS for us to again remember that they beat the damn Giants? Felt like that had been a bit forgotten as the boys faltered, at least in this corner. I don't think that we've forgotten that the Dodgers have beaten the Giants, but that wasn't the goal this season. The goal is to win the World Series, and you can't really live in the past from one postseason round, because the Braves definitely put their name in our heads after getting up in this series 2-0. That was kind of a wake-up call for us to be like, okay, you cannot sleep on this team. Maybe we thought the Dodgers Giants was the NLCS, but once again, mistaken. This Braves team is ready for this moment, and they're absolutely battling us right now.
Yeah, we're who they thought they were, basically, are the Braves. And I think that when you look at the NLDS, that was a major accomplishment, no doubt about it. The Dodgers taking out the team with the most wins in baseball in a 5-game bloodbath was pretty heroic. However, as I was watching this Braves series, and I had come to terms with this a few times, is that if the Dodgers were to have been knocked out by the Braves, I was at least okay with the fact that the Dodgers prevented the Giants from getting to the World Series. So I felt at peace with that. And I also just didn't want the Dodgers to have any other team celebrate on their field. I can't bear to watch it. I mean, we've seen those clips of the Astros. I mean, celebrating at Dodger Stadium is just just horrendous. So
the Red Sox, the Nationals.
I'm at least glad that they were, they pushed it back to Atlanta for at least one more game.
Yeah, obviously the only thing that truly matters is, did you win a World Series or not? But if they are to go down in Atlanta or in the World Series, at the very least, taking the Giants down with us is a hell of a consolation prize. So we prevented them from winning a World Series. Obviously, that's not as good as winning a World Series, but it's about the next damn thing. So they're crying in the Bay Area. They're still crying about it. So take solace in that, I guess.
All right. Let's move on to a couple final segments. Let's get some predictions in there. What's going to happen in Game 6?
Oh, God.
I'll start this one off. I think Max Scherzer is going to pitch a gem. He'll go 6 at least, 6 strong, maybe give up a run or two. But I think Cody Bellinger is going to continue his hot hitting. We haven't really talked about him. Hitting .429 in the championship series. Had an iconic home run for the ages off Luke Jackson in what almost seemed like another defeat for the Dodgers. But in that 8th inning, Cody Bellinger had some postseason magic with that home run. So I think Cody Bellinger is going to have a big game in Game 6.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Cody Bellinger has, like I said, he's one of those players that was, I don't know how, just activated by the postseason. Just, exactly what you remember Cody Bellinger to be, and an unbelievable time for him to get hot. It is amazing what Cody Bellinger can do in a championship series. I mean, just looking back in 2018, he won the MVP. In 2020, he, was in Game 7 of the NLCS, gave the Dodgers the lead. In 2021, he has been everything he was great in the DS, and now he's been great in the NLCS. And he delivered a swing that gave the Dodgers life again and brought them back from the dead. I mean, they were dead. Even Dave Roberts said it. They were cooked. They were done. And Cody Bellinger basically provided the entire team with CPR. And I mean, unbelievable. And the fact that Luke Jackson made his pitch, said, "This is my best pitch. Freaking hit it." And Cody Bellinger was like, "Okay, I will," and did it. It's just beautiful.
And that's the pitch he's been missing all season long. The high fastball, couldn't touch it all year long. And he's made adjustments. He's choked up on the bat. He guessed right, and he hit that pitch 2 feet outside over the right center field wall. So, look, this is a huge development because, look, you got to face the reality that Corey Seager very, very well may be gone in the offseason. I know Kevin doesn't think so. I know he doesn't want that, but that's a very real possibility. And to see Cody Bellinger get back to doing Cody Bellinger things is massive for this Dodgers team. Because if you're going to go 2022 without Corey Seager, you need a version of 2019 Cody Bellinger back in the lineup, back hitting fourth, back hitting third, back hitting fifth, getting 100 RBIs, hitting 30 home runs. You need that next year. And this is what we're seeing from Cody Bellinger. 2 hits off left-handed pitchers last night. Went the other way, inside out of the fastball. He looks phenomenal. As for predictions for Game 6, I don't fucking know. I've been wrong a lot. I'm going to keep my mouth shut. I hope they win. I will say, if they win Game 6, I think they win Game 7. That's as far as I'm going to go.
That's what I'm saying too. And I made that prediction already. I just feel it that if the Dodgers were to win Game 6, I just don't think Atlanta could handle it. I just don't think they can handle that pressure. And I think that I just don't know if they can rally after that. I mean, that is the fate of the world is on your shoulders now. The pressure is all on Atlanta if the Dodgers win Game 6.
100%.
That's huge. That's huge going into a Game 7.
Yeah, I mean, and you're going to get haters for what you just said, which I completely agree with. You're going to get haters say the opposite. You're going to be like, oh, the Dodgers have a $280 million payroll. They're expected to win the World Series. All the pressure's on them. Wrong. Down 3-1 in the series for the second straight year. And if you force a Game 7, that pressure is on Atlanta 100%. At this point, as crazy as it sounds, the Dodgers are playing with house money right now. They're backed against the wall, down 3-1. Whatever happens. It's house money at this point. No one expected them to come back from 3-1 last year. Not a lot of people expected it this year. If they can force a Game 7, that's danger time for Atlanta. Even though a lot of these players were not on the team last year, Peterson, Rosario, Duvall, or Duvall might have been actually. But
I think Duvall was.
He got replaced early on in the series. But
yeah,
you get my point. Pressure's on Atlanta if they force Game 7.
And they'll have to face Walker Buehler, who's looking for some serious redemption. I don't know what happened in that 4th inning. It was almost like a Steve Bartman incident. Just everything went wrong right away. But yeah, you better bet your ass Walker Buehler will be ready for Game 7 because those are the moments he thrives on. Elimination games. He brought it on 3 days rest against the Giants. I'm very optimistic he'll bring it again in the Atlanta. So be ready, Braves. If you blow Game 6, it's happening.
Yeah, my quick keys to Game 6 are basically do what you did in Game 2, as crazy as that sounds. Early in the game, make Ian Anderson work the count, draw some walks, and the only difference I would say is you're going to have to get a couple hits with runners in scoring position. You just are.
Yeah, don't go 1 for 10.
It's not quite Dodger Stadium. It's not quite. They say it's a hitter-friendly park, but as we've seen, the Dodgers have hit way better at Dodger Stadium. So you're just going to have to get some singles and some doubles with runners in scoring position.
And yesterday, the Dodgers went 3 for 8 with runners in scoring position, which is better than they've done in any other game in this series. So that is going to be the key. And the thing is that I even texted you guys saying I didn't know it. Well, I sort of was like, why are we keeping Max Fried around for so long? But the difference being is that it wasn't that the Dodgers were just, providing traffic on the base paths and then not cashing in. They were cashing in ever so often. So you don't need big 5-6 run innings. You just need, when you get a run at a third with less than 2 outs, you hit a goddamn fly ball. That's what you got to do. Just chip away and manufacture runs and don't wait for the 3-run homer. I think that was very convenient yesterday, is that the Dodgers hit 5 home runs, 2 from Pollock, 3 from Taylor, and they were massive multi-run home runs. And that's something that the Dodgers can do, but relying solely on that is just not, you just can't do that for Game 6. You've got to chip away and score where you can.
The other thing that I love that the Dodgers have been doing in this series is attacking the base paths with their stolen bases. I made a prediction that they were going to steal at least 4 bases. That was probably a conservative estimate now looking back, but maybe if I looked at Vegas predictions, I'd be right on the money. But what they've been doing is just running all day and all night on Travis d'Arnaud, and it's really setting the tone. We saw it rattle Max Fried in yesterday's game. So when you get a runner on first, whether it's Turner, Bellinger, Taylor, Mookie, just keep doing what you're doing.
Just keep running it.
Just keep running.
I don't think d'Arnaud's thrown out a runner in this series. I can't remember.
He hasn't.
I saw it watching the game in Atlanta. I was like, we should be running all over this guy. If you get on first and you have a little bit of speed, you should be on second.
His pop time is got to be horrendous. He's got a strong arm, but it takes him forever to throw the ball.
Yeah. The last comment I have is just once again commending this Dodgers bullpen. They've been fantastic this postseason. They've already compiled 54 1/3 innings with 70 strikeouts and the best ERA in baseball, 2.32. Just
filthy.
The nuts right there. Any final thoughts real quick before we sign off?
Should we do? My final thoughts are, and this is sort of an overall thought, I think that I had watching Game 5 last night, which was, you kind of take for granted Dodgers baseball. Like it happens every year, right? There's 162 regular season games. The team goes as far as they go in the postseason. But when you're in all of these elimination games, and when you're a fan watching these elimination games one after the other, you begin to realize that it's really kind of cool that you're getting to watch a game so that you could watch another Dodgers game. And that to me is something that gets kind of lost in all of this. I feel is just the appreciation of it. And I feel like Dodgers fans should appreciate this ridiculous run that they're on, because as the three of us know, it wasn't always like this. I think a few fans that have just joined or just kind of are becoming of age during this era of dominance of Dodgers baseball, they tend to get maybe jaded or forget that there was a really terrible time before that. So just getting the opportunity to not only see if the Dodgers can play and win so that we can all watch another Dodgers game is a pretty great position to be in if you're thinking positively like that. But Game 6 is going to be just gut-wrenching the whole time. I mean, I feel like every single game for the past month has been that way. And so I'm looking forward to it from that end. And if the Dodgers can force a Game 7, I think they're going to the World Series.
Yeah, those young fans you talk about never got to experience Vicente Padilla being your opening day starter.
Hey, he was actually pretty decent for a while. This is a pro Vicente Padilla podcast.
He was the only pitcher to throw a soap bubble, as Vin Scully would call it. That really just high arcing curveball.
Yeah. All right. My final thoughts are this. I really like this team. I wish we could keep the same exact roster for the next 5 years. No free agents, nothing. Just keep everybody on who we have now on the roster. Obviously get guys back healthy, but keep the same names. So if this is it, I'm going to enjoy seeing this group of players play together. Obviously, it's not the same without Muncy, Turner, Kershaw, Dustin May. The list goes on. But I still think they got some fight in them. I really do. And like we've talked about this entire episode, and like Jake just said, if they can win tomorrow, I think they're in real good shape. What I need to see tomorrow is kind of what I saw last night. Obviously the offense, but I'm talking about the pitching. Aside from the Freddie Freeman home run, they neutralized pretty much everyone in the lineup. It's going to be tough to contain Babe Ruth, Rosario, but look, they neutralized pretty much Riley. Albies got on once, I believe, and that was it. He's been killing us. So if you can neutralize Albies, somewhat neutralize Freeman and Rosario, and neutralize Riley, I think you're in good shape. Obviously, Jock is going to be tough as well. But if Scherzer can just go 5-6 innings without giving up more than 1 or 2 runs, I like our chances tomorrow a lot.
My last thoughts are I'm sick of people online or in the TBS broadcast booth constantly belittling Dodger fans in the stadium for not looking like it's at full capacity when first pitch is underway. For context, first of all, when these games start at 5, that's nearly impossible for a lot of people to get to that stadium to begin with, because a lot of us work 8 to 5. Second of all, a lot of these people have not experienced Los Angeles traffic because it is the absolute worst.
Yes.
And
go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say real quick, you got to realize Dodger Stadium holds more than I think every other stadium in baseball.
56,000.
So, yeah. And I think there's only one other baseball stadium that holds over 50. So when you say it's not full, it's still fuller than pretty much every other stadium in baseball. So yeah, there's going to be a couple visuals that people will cherry pick online and be like, oh, there's some open seats in the reserve in the top left corner of the stadium, the worst seat in the house. Well, yeah, but they're also still filling out 50,000 fans. So first of all, TBS, shut the hell up with your parking lot cam. I don't need to see 2 cars driving out of the game. What if someone got sick? What if someone has a family emergency? What if someone has diarrhea and has to leave? You got to realize that, sometimes people are going to have to leave. So I don't need to see 3 cars driving out of the stadium.
Yeah. And the other thing is that Dodgers fans are more susceptible to getting diarrhea. So you should have some respect.
Yeah.
I will say this. It is, Kevin said it's hard to get to because of the traffic. Dodger Stadium is just hard to get to. I mean, it is like on a hill. It's on a ravine. I mean, it's
incline,
up there.
Dare I say.
Yeah, exactly. And most of these newer ballparks, or most of the ballparks around the majors, are in the middle of cities and they're walkable. We were just in Atlanta, and that is a very walkable stadium. There are restaurants and bars all around the place, and you can be dropped off in the area and hang out there and walk right into the ballpark. Dodger Stadium isn't built like that. You can hang out at the bottom, right? But you still got to walk up like a giant hill to get there. So there are a lot of factors at play. And I just feel like I don't like ignorant people that kind of just look past the context of it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep, that was the last thing I was going to add, is just the location is so inconvenient, but it's what makes the stadium, and it's got that gorgeous view of overlooking downtown and other parts of Los Angeles.
Yep. One of the best baseball sky stadiums there is.
So listen, fans, the next time you hear from us, we'll either be recapping what went wrong, or we'll be previewing the World Series. We don't know who the Dodgers or Braves will be facing yet. It could be it could be the Astros. It could be the Red Sox. That game is playing right now. So we'll see what happens. And I guess it's also worth noting, if you're listening tonight or in the morning, that if the Red Sox force a Game 7, then the Dodgers would play the Saturday game at 2:00. If it's over, they play at 5:00, and these are Pacific times. So keep that in mind as well. Hope that helps you out. Help us out by subscribing to the Incline Dodgers podcast wherever you listen, or YouTube if you like watching us. Give us a 5-star rating. That'll go a long way as well. Trying to move up the charts in the baseball podcast. And we also want to just let you know we are powered by Fansided, so you can find us on fansided.com as well under the Dodgers section. So lots of cool stuff, and thank you guys so much for hanging with us all season long. Hopefully it's not done yet. It's been quite a year, a lot of highs and lows. But for the most part, I agree with David. I do love this team, although there are a couple changes I would like to make, but we can talk about that when we get there. Have a good one, everyone.